Hello, my name's Jan Wood. Welcome to today's episode of Coffee Break, and today I'm back again in Ballast Point National Park, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I've been listening to what people say. I've been eavesdropping on people when they come here. And two comments make me very, very mad. Number one, oh, the people around here are so lucky to have this lovely park. Now, that makes me see red, because it wasn't luck. It was a long, hard, bitter political struggle by some very dedicated and clever local heroes. Another thing that makes me cross is, oh, their property values must have gone up. This site is a jewel in the crown of beautiful Sydney Harbour, and because of the work of our local heroes, everybody in Sydney is able to enjoy this wonderful place. And if it hadn't been for our local heroes, I would now be standing on the site of one of the 248 luxury townhouses that were originally planned for this site. And that plan actually had very, very little open space. So I hope you enjoyed today's program honouring our local heroes.
Sausage Sizzle was to celebrate. The Premier had given us the park. There was obviously still a long way to go because the site had to be cleared and so on. But that was really the first step and the first celebration of that first step to what is now finally has come to fruition, our wonderful Ballast Point Park.
But some of the people not featured in this footage also made an enormous contribution, and I was thinking of Nick Origlass.
Yes, well, Nick Origlass and Izzy Weiner were two of the councillors in Leichhardt Council who were particularly Balmain orientated, and they had been very strongly behind that push not to rezone the land and to have that site as open space, as they had been behind so many other of the battles that we'd had in Balmain over the many years. They were both extremely hard-working councillors and very, very much supported by the locals.
So there was the grassroots activism by the residents, but there was also quite a campaign by our politicians.
Yes, to a certain extent. They had to be pushed along the way. The local politicians, certainly the local councillors, were very much on side and continued to be. It was their continual refusal to rezone the land, which is zoned industrial, and had to be rezoned to residential for a development to go ahead, and they continually refused to do that. And that served as a buffer all the while until finally it was actually Paul Keating that made the move and pushed the state government to recognise the importance of the point. Now we have Ballast Point and Ball's Head as the two, the sort of beginning of Parramatta River, really, the gateway to the west. And a very fitting thing. We did suggest that before the 2000 Olympics. We had a big push to the Premier at that time to say that this would be a really good thing before the Olympics to have this point as a green point. So it's taken a little bit longer to get there, but we've finally done it. This is Sandra Norrie, the local member for the seat of Port Jackson, and Fergus Ricky, who was the chairman of the campaign at the time, and myself. And it's a photo taken down at Symonds Point with the Ballast Point Park in the background. So that was the Ballast Point, with Caltex, the Caltex on it in the background. So it was really just to recognise that we'd won it. We'd got it had been decided to hand it over to the people. And that was taken just after that. So this is now just our local, little local paper that comes out once a month. So at the beginning of the next month, there was a group of people who'd been involved in the campaign who were all cheering for Ballast Point victory. So a few notables there. John Morris, who was involved with the National Trust for many years, and Roger Parkes and Fergus, who were the campaigners in the campaign and co-chairpersons, and then June Lunsman, Kath Hamey, myself, my husband Malcolm Garder, daughter, grandchildren, all just happy to be there, and Val Hamey. This is something that we, the campaign, put together, showing what was on the site in 1990 when we were beginning our campaign, and moving over to what was proposed for the site. That's looking at the plan, and that's giving you a profile of the incredible development as it would be. That's the plan, and this is looking at it from the side. So you're looking at Ballast Point, as if you're looking at it from Ball's Head. And this, of course, is what we planned. A little difficult to see, but this is the point here, totally greened out. And in time, it will look probably not dissimilar to that. We didn't think we'd have to wait 20 years, though.
And now we'll cut to some footage that I took in March 2002, just after the Ballast Point campaigners learned that Ballast Point was going to be bought by the state government and turned into this wonderful, wonderful park. So let's go back in time to March 2002 to the sausage sizzle outside the gates of the old Caltex site.
My name is Diana Garder. I'm a local resident. I've been involved in activities in Balmain really going back over the last more than 35 years. Got involved with Balmain Association when it first started, and there have been a number of things that we've got involved in, but I guess the biggest one has been for us Wharf Road and the Burst campaign, which started in 1989. Burst campaign was the beginning of looking at 5 different sites around Balmain, of which Caltex was one. Unilever and Ampol, Balmain Power Station and Monsanto were the other 4. Sadly, we've lost all of those, but we've just persevered and managed to finally win through and get Ballast Point, the government to agree to buy Ballast Point as a park for not just Balmain but for all of Sydney.
Malcolm Garder. I've lived in Wharf Road for quite a while, and I was brought into this group mainly to help in town planning evaluation matters. This site here was zoned industrial for a long while, and people asked me what it was worth, and as a professional I had to say what it was worth industrially, and then I was asked what it was worth residentially, which was a lot more. And my suggestion was that we never let it be rezoned from industrial to residential. A lot of people thought that it may be incorrect for me to put a high figure on it as a residential site, but one of the things that saved the site is that the council didn't rezone it to residential because they could never afford it and we could never afford it. And if they did go to residential, the developer would have had a hand at redeveloping it. There is a lot of skills in Balmain. We had an accountant guy, and he was brilliant. He came up with innovative solutions how that Caltex could donate the land and get a tax rebate. That was John Banks. And there's all sorts of skills. There's solicitors involved, there's town planners, valuers, residents. Everyone sort of played their part, and it worked very well together, and it was great. In terms of community, I would suggest that people really do to get together. There's a lot of strengths in all communities. No matter where they are in Sydney, you'll find there's experts, and apart from experts, you want to know what the people really want. We don't want government coming in and telling us what we should have. Ask the people what they want, and often there's a better solution than being overlorded by some other outside expert who may not have the answer.
I think the key to all this is that you really should never give up. I think individuals, at any one time, one group will take up the baton and run with it, and I think you have to accept that. These things go on for years, and this is an example. This fight started years ago, and it really started in 1989. In a sense, the success in the time that's occurred is fairly good, but every couple of years is so much effort that people start to flag, and I know that there were key members of our group, for instance, the Lunsmans, had just in 1989 had just come out of fighting the battle for Mort Bay, and you know they had a rest, but they were part of it. But then after they'd had a rest for a little of the time, they then were running, if you like, and holding the baton. So I think the key to this is that resident action does work. I think as long as the reason for it is really very clear and justified, you can keep support going, but accept the fact that that individuals will run out of steam. I think the other thing is, although the demography changes, people who were here originally are no longer here, they've moved out, the cause will remain. So I think you shouldn't give up, even though some individuals will give up. You hand it over and support the next lot who are going to do it.
And I've been involved with, I suppose, since about 1980, the late 80s, and I've been on the committee since about 1992, and I don't know, I think I've been just a solid little worker. I'm passionate about this cause because I think that I'm fed up with this, with the industrial sites going from 9 down to 1 and all being overdeveloped. And when this came up, I thought this is something we should fight for, and we fought for it, and I think we've been very successful.
Well, I actually think that these issues like this is very important for a sense of community as well, because you have people working together, and when you have people working together, they're actually talking, they actually feel they're part of a community, and so I think this is not just a matter of Ballast Point. I mean, that's a very important one, but it's a matter, it gives a sense of community, as do any issues like this. I think it is important that people realise that they actually can, if they stick in there long enough, they can actually influence people, and if we hadn't kept going like this, we certainly wouldn't have got this this park. So, my message to anybody would be to keep up the good work.
Hello, my name is Patty Rice. If you've known me for years, I'm Patty Rice, but I'm Pat Phillips now, and I'm a member of the Ballast Point Committee. And this is June my neighbour.
Hi, I'm June Lunsman. I'm a member of the Ballast Point Committee too, and I live across the road and up the hill a little bit from Pat, or I should say down the hill. And Pat's been a really good neighbour for a long time, and she's been here longer than me. And fighting on the campaign. Yep.
It's been a wonderful achievement. These people have been wonderful what they have achieved, and it just goes to show if people pull together and stick at it what they can do.
I can't say anything more than Pat. Pat's been a person who's door knocked. I hate door knocking, and she's brave enough to go out there and knock on people's door and say come to things, and she's done leafleting and all of those things that are so important, and that a few of us don't have the time, or as I said, I don't like door knocking, don't have the ability to do it. Yep. So it's been good.
The tips I would say for people if they want to lobby is to keep at it, and the people that know who to contact, and the women are wonderful. And this is what we didn't have years ago. Congratulations to the women.
Thank you.
I was a member of that, but I was also a member of the Leichhardt Council. I was an alderman on the council for a long period of years, and during that time I was one of those who influenced the council to take a strong stand against allowing any kind of development on this site and 4 others. It became known as the 5 sites in Balmain, and this is one at least that we've saved. The others we've pretty well lost. They've put huge developments on them now, loads of bricks and mortar, and there's nothing we can do about that. But the next stage in our fight is to try and save Caltex Park, which is one of the most wonderful pieces of land that you could find anywhere for public use.
I'm Jean Lennane, and my contribution to this victory today, I would say, has been relatively minor, except that I have been heavily involved in a number of related local issues over the last 15, 17 years, and they're all interrelated. It's all part of the same problem, and well, we've won an important victory, and we hope it's one of many. Well, one of the biggest tips is that you should live in a marginal seat, and if you do not live in a marginal seat, you have to make it marginal. And this has always been our problem, that we live in a seat that traditionally has been safe Labor, although the state seat was actually lost in 1988 over similar issues, over the Mort Bay issue. So there are a lot of people who traditionally have always voted Labor because they believe in the principles that Labor used to stand for, but of course it doesn't anymore. The 2 parties, major parties, are indistinguishable virtually, and it doesn't matter what you vote, except that you have to be very sure that whatever you do, you're not making it a safe seat. Now, safe Labor, safe Liberal, doesn't matter. So people who get everything they want, or most things they want, are people who are in swinging seats.
The hard work was just continuing over about 14 years of battles, and Roger expresses it most well by saying it was waves of people. The first lot did the court cases for the 5 sites, the second lot did the protests about when a bridge was going to occur over the whole of Balmain, and more came in and continued for the singulation of the fight against Ballast Point. And I think we've continued the interest in the profile that it is a prominent headland of Sydney Harbour and should remain as a part of the area for everyone to work.
My name's Jeanette Sullivan, and I've been asked to record my contribution, and my contribution is small but long-standing. Like a lot of people, I was there at the first protest meeting, the first DA to redevelop Ballast Point was in the fateful November 1989, and we all rallied here, and Tom Uren addressed the meeting, and that was the start of it. And for me, I've been to lots of meetings, lots of nights, long nights at council, Leichhardt Council, and what I think this fight shows is that, well, what it's taught me is that people come in, they can make a massive contribution like John Banks did at the beginning, and then their life takes them out of a fight. He left Balmain. New people come on board like Helen, who made her momentous contribution with the court case. Then she handed the baton over to people like Roger and Fergus and June. So people have come in and come out of this fight, and what it taught me is that you have to take people's contribution, not criticise, and value it for what an enormous amount people can give over a short period of time. And so lots of people have been involved in this in small ways, big ways, and there are some unrepeatable stories about that have happened along the way. I'd like to thank each and every one for their individual contribution.
And the Sydney Harbour Foreshore Authority have done a wonderful job.
They have indeed.
And the landscape architects have created what I describe as a walk-around sculptural installation.
It is. And it's interesting that it could have been, we weren't really sure how it was going to pan out as a park was. And I guess we had initially thought of it being something more like Ball's Head, perhaps a bit more native plantings, and obviously in time when those plantings grow up, what's there they'll soften it down. But I think they've done a fantastic job, and I think that they've obviously really thought hard about who they would choose to design the park and incorporate the parts of the park that it tells its story, with the initial footprint of the house Minervia that was there, through to its industrial life on the site. Parts of that have been kept. The big tank at the top, obviously, really helps to tell the story of that, the history on that side.
Di, on behalf of the people of Sydney, can I just say one thing? To the Ballast Point campaigners, thank you.
Well, it's been our pleasure very much, and I think to see the number of people using the park, the number of people that are coming in from out of the area to use the park, as it's had a little bit of publicity, is just really satisfying, because it isn't just a park for, the people here on Wharf Road and Ballast Point Road. It is a park for all of Sydney, and with its link now through to Mort Bay Park and around, it's great. It's great to see it being used.